It is your good friend Chad Marco here again with another awesome anime review for you guys. Now, as you can see, today I am reviewing none other than ReZero. I've been reviewing a lot of like older anime like Cowboy Bebop, what's the other shit? Ashita no Joe. So I want to do something more recent and something that's fairly popular, something that a lot of people have been talking about. I've seen so many memes and threads and screenshots from this anime, and I was like, you know what? I'm curious. Let me just check this one out. So I did. And I have mixed feelings about it, to say the least. But without further bullshit, let's get right into this, right? Okay, now ReZero is an anime that came out around 2016. It's based on a light novel series written by Tappei Nagatsuki. I don't know. And it's about this young man named Subaru Natsuki. Natsuki. We're gonna go with Natsuki today. Isn't Subaru the car company? Whatever. But it's an anime about this young man, whichever you want to go with, named Subaru Natsuki. He's a normal 18-year-old hickey nobody, and he gets transported to another world out of the blue. He was just shopping for some ramen and just typical neat bullshit, and he steps outside of the convenience store. Something happens, and next thing he knows he's just in a totally different fantasy world. Now, the world he enters is like this medieval period where people, they still fight with swords and they live under mostly primitive conditions. But there are also fantasy elements like demi-humans, which are like half dog, half human creatures, that type of furry shit, magic users and spirit beasts. It's almost like the kind of world one would expect to find in a fantasy role-playing game like the Elder Scrolls or Final Fantasy, something like Final Fantasy 9. Like that's really what that world reminds me of. Final Fantasy 9, just all these different people of different shapes and sizes, and half animal, half man, beasts walking around and shit, and political turmoil and conflict and all that shit. Like, that's the type of world that he enters. Now, his initial reaction to being yanked into another world is kind of funny, because it's as if he immediately realized that he was brought there for the purpose of being the hero who saves the day, or the main character of a video game. Because I think most geeks, we fantasize at least a few times about what it would be like to be the main character in one of our favorite video game worlds. Like, what if I was in Pokemon, or what if I was in the Gundam universe piloting my own Gundam? So Natsuki was really excited about what what might lay ahead, because he's instantly just having all these fantasies like, I'm the chosen one and all that shit. But boy, was he wrong. So he ends up running into these three ruffians in a back alley who want to rob him. At this point, he still doesn't realize the severity of the situation. So he's taking it pretty lightly until they start beating his ass. But before they can do any serious harm, he is rescued by a young female half-elf magic user named Emilia. Now, Emilia ends up becoming his primary love interest for the remainder of this anime, but we'll save that for later. Now, Subaru, this ends up becoming love at first sight for him, because not only is Emilia very beautiful, charming, and gorgeous, literally an angel sent from the heavens. She just saved his fucking life. So he takes an immediate liking to her, which really an understatement. It's almost creepy. His attachment to her as things goes along. But After chatting a bit with Subaru, he learns that the girl he just saved is looking for an amulet that was stolen from her. And of course, Subaru, being the thirsty little good Samaritan that he is, he's more than happy to assist her in finding it. So they explore the local areas, trying to find any leads as to where the thief of this amulet might be. All the while, Natsuki is learning more about this strange new world he's in as he traverses through it with Amelia. So they're just kind of going from place to place, trying to figure out who took the amulet and where did they go. And she just kind of schooling Subaru about the world he's in as they kind of go along. Eventually, their leads land them in the slums where the thief of the amulet is supposedly known to dwell. Natsuki enters the thief's hideout and sees a large man who has been brutally murdered. Before he can even figure out what happened, he gets attacked by a mysterious person and is left stabbed and bleeding out on the floor. Shit got real like super quick. But yeah, just as he's about to die, Amelia walks in and she too falls victim to the mysterious assailant who gutted Natsuki. Natsuki dies with Amelia's bloody corpse being the last thing that he sees. Then he awakens perfectly fine, right where he was when he entered this fantasy world. So just kind of imagine like you're playing a video game and then you let's say you save in town, right? And then you go off to like explore and you go into this dungeon or whatever and you end up dying because you run into a high level monster. And of course you die, and then you will probably more than likely, usually you instantly respawn back where you last saved, which would be inside the town. That's basically what happened to Natsuki in this situation. Get some water. So, if you haven't guessed it by now, the whole gimmick of this anime is that even though Natsuki is a useless idiot, fish out of water in a dangerous new world, he is able to return to life after dying with the knowledge of everything that happened up until his death, giving him the power to change his and the face of others by interfering with the events that he already knows will take place. For example, knowing that he and Amelia would be killed upon entering the thief's hideout, he resolves to go there much earlier than he did the first time, giving him a chance to meet the large man who he found already dead the previous go round, and felt the young thief who stole the amulet in the first place. He ends up dying again after putting up a struggle this time, but this time he was able to meet his killer face to face. So each time he makes little adjustments and approaches the situation from a different angle in order to achieve a desirable result, which is usually one that ends with him and his comrades all being alive. So it doesn't take long for him to kind of get the gist of what's going on. He realizes like, okay, not only am I in this new world, but when I die, I come back just as if I had saved in a video game, and I get the chance to do things in a different way to get a better outcome. Because I'm sure we've all played video games and they call it save scumming, where you just sort of save like every 30 seconds just so you don't lose any progress. Kind of takes a bit of the fun out of playing video games, but if you're really concerned about losing progress, which most of us are, you know, and if the game gives you that amount of freedom, then that's what you're gonna do. But in this case, it doesn't seem as if Natsuki has the ability to choose where his save point is. It always tends to be at a very convenient spot, but it's not as if he can say, all right, I'm going to save right before I walk into this this building, or I'm going to save and see if I can beat this guy up and take his shit. Like, he can't do anything like that. Like, it's usually set at a certain time, and that's just what it's going to be until he progresses further along into the days. But it kind of makes me wonder though, like, what if he did something that made him think that he got a desirable result, but it actually wasn't, and he didn't realize until like a month later, but he couldn't go back. Like, so just some shit like that. I feel like that's something I run into. I think I did it right, and then a month later I realized like, oh shit, but now this. So yeah. So after dying and trying several times, Natsuki is finally able to both retrieve the amulet that was stolen from Emilia and fend off the attacker who killed them the first time, all the while meeting other relevant characters and learning their particular motivations and relationship to each other and the world. At the end of the battle, Natsuki was badly injured and needed thorough medical attention. He passes out and awakes in a mansion, greeted by two kawaii twin maids, of course, named Rim and Ram. He learns that Emilia is a resident of a huge estate owned by an eccentric mage named Roswell. I'm gonna go with Roswell. And in return for helping out Emilia, Roswell offers Natsuki to make any requests of him as compensation. And of course, Natsuki, being a thirsty little bitch, he asks that Roswell make him a servant so that he can remain close to Emilia. Now, at first, everything seems perfectly fine. Natsuki probably never cleaned or cooked a day in his life, so he's having trouble making himself useful as a servant. But he's trying his best under the watchful eyes of Rim and Ram. He's getting to know the residents of the mansion, like Beatrice, the lolly mage who resides in the library, Puck, Emilia's familiar. I like the Amelia's familiar. I like saying it. Amelia's familiar. That could be like a rap song or something. But yeah. And he also gets to know the local villagers who reside outside of the mansion in the village or whatever. He's playing with the kids and just getting to know everybody. Like, even though Natsuki is kind of an idiot, it's like, what can you really expect? Because he's really such a fish out of water, far out of his comfort zone. I feel like anybody would kind of be somewhat useless and out of place, given the situation. Like, if you take somebody like a fucking Japanese salaryman, he's perfectly acclimated to fucking being in Japan. But if you take him and put him in the middle of Africa, they're gonna eat him up. I don't care how hard working and diligent he is, he's gonna get eaten by fucking hyenas or something. If you take me and put me anywhere, I'm gonna fuck up probably. But yeah, but really, despite that, the one thing that he has going for him is that he's a very likable person. Like, even though he's again useless, people just seem drawn to him in a way where, like, because they don't really understand him because his ways are very, very different. But he's still just, people just take to him quickly, and that's what you notice about him, like, really early on. But yeah, one night he asked Emilia to go out on a date with him, but she's a bit naive about romance, so she doesn't really understand exactly what he means, but she agrees to it, much to the delight of Natsuki. He goes to sleep that night happy as could be. Then he wakes up dead. How you gonna wake up dead? Like, how you gonna wake up? I love when people say that, wake up dead. It's so stupid. You wake up dead. Like, you woke up and you were dead. But yeah, he went to sleep that night, and when he woke up in the morning, he realized that he had returned to the day when he first arrived at the mansion. because the cuts he got on his hands from trying to cut vegetables were missing, meaning it never happened, meaning somewhere between going to sleep that night and waking up, someone must have killed him. So yet again, he has to figure out how to survive this new ordeal, as well as figure out who the assassin might be. At the very least, now he knows that if he dies, he won't go all the way back to the beginning. There seems to be save points of some sort, usually after overcoming a major trial. And that's pretty much the pattern that the rest of this anime follows. It's all about Natsuki trying to win the heart of Emilia while protecting her from the many dangers that are ahead, usually by dying several times while trying to change the fate of himself and those around him. So, excuse me, there is a recognizable pattern to this anime. So it does get a bit predictable, but I feel like it works because it always manages to keep you interested, at the very least. Like, oh man, how is he gonna get out of it this time? Like what, like how can he change his approach? So I'm not gonna go too far into the whole plot, the whole story, anything like that. I don't want to. I'm probably gonna have a couple spoilers ahead, so be mindful of that. Just as I described the characters and the good and the bad, but that's about as much of the plot I want to talk about here. Next, I'm going to get into the actual characters themselves. So I will return. Okay, now we're going to talk about the characters of Re:Zero. Now, there are quite a few characters in Re:Zero, but I'm not going to talk about too many of them, and because honestly, a lot of them just aren't that interesting, in my opinion. But I'm going to talk about the ones that I thought were the most relevant. So yeah. Now, obviously, I have to talk about Subaru Natsuki, the hero. Oh man, our guy, the hickey who has the power of return by death. Oh yeah. So, whenever I saw this anime mentioned, it was obviously apparent to me that Natsuki was the type of character that someone like myself and other loser, weirdo, outcast, hickey, neat, broke ass, bitch boy type niggas could relate to. And that's definitely the case here, at least somewhat. Like, with him, I do see some parts of myself in him. But at the same time, I don't like him. Like, I feel I resonate with him on a certain level, but at the same time I don't. It's kind of like half and half. But I'll get more into that later. I'm gonna talk more about his character a little bit. Now, Natsuki, he can be very silly at times, and of course he's pretty useless at doing any sort of like meaningful tasks. I mean, because again, like, he was just a fucking normal hickey shut-in type. They don't really go into too much detail about his personal life before he got transported to this world. We just know that I can just imagine, like, he's just your typical man, I imagine like maybe like Naoto. Is it, oh man, I forgot his name. Or who from Welcome to NHK, but had he been 18 instead of 22. I'm just assuming that was his life up until that point. Just sort of probably finished school, but maybe, but really didn't have any sort of serious plans for the future. Probably indulged in a lot of video games and manga and anime and junk food, and doubtful that he had any semblance of a girlfriend or a big social life. Pretty much, I guess you could say and all the evidence points towards him being just your kind of typical modern day media consuming loser outcast type. But there is one scene though early on where he goes back to the point where those three guys were trying to rob him, and he ran up to the motherfuckers and just stole all me and said bam and just kicked the shit out of him. And just talked about how having too much free time on his hands and how that gave him time to like train or whatever. And that's one of the things that I can kind of relate to, is that even though I'm this sort of outcast loser, like I'm in pretty good shape because I got this fucking free time, so I'm always running and doing push-ups and lifting shit. So I always find that funny when they sort of add that aspect to these type of characters. Like I remember watching Welcome to NHK, and there was a short scene where you see it wasn't Naoto, it's Salto. My bad. But there's a short scene where you see Salto in his room, like just jabbing and shadow boxing. So just doing like this little training shit. And I was like, man, it's the same dumb shit I be doing. just in the fucking living room throwing punches like I'm fighting and shit, like practicing or whatever. But he's not really a bad guy. Yeah, he's a loser hickey type, but that doesn't necessarily make him like evil or anything. I think the main problem with Natsuki is that he's trying to enforce his will as a man with no skill or rank in a world that demands both. Because again, he's really nobody in his world, and he doesn't have any real marketable skills or know-how that would be of use to anyone. I mean, really the only thing that allows him to progress is the fact that he can die and go back and redo things in a different way. Really, without that, he would have died day one with Amelia. So that one thing is really his saving grace that allows him to progress. But also, I've been eating all night. Had a fucking anime session. I'm sorry. So I'm probably be burping and shit. But yeah, that's really his saving grace, because without it, he just doesn't have anything going for him. He's never been forced out of his comfort zone, but in order to save Emilia, he has to confront his personal flaws that he's never addressed. Most importantly, being a self-hating, half-assed little boy. Oh God, I mean, it's painful, like seeing him, because I can never really just say, you know what, man, fuck Subaru, because you just know you probably would have did the same thing in his shoes. Well, for the most part, and we're gonna get into that too. But it's kind of like, I can relate to having a lot of his flaws, but I guess the difference is that I'm at that point where, like, I've gone through that self-hating phase and realizing, like, well, I'm not gonna hate myself to success, so I need to try a different method. So I've kind of gone through all that. So seeing him go through it, it's painful, dude. It's really oh man, it's really not fun. And I guess it should have been more touching, but I'm gonna talk about that a little bit later though. Let's get more about it, because I got a lot of things to say about this fucking anime. But yeah, when it comes down to it though, you have to admit Natsuki has balls. Now, of course, knowing that death isn't the end would make anyone a little braver, but it still takes something to confront real danger and pain head on. And he does that many times throughout the anime. And he does have a lot of moments where he kind of cowers in fear too. But I just have to give him credit, because anytime you can move forward knowing that a horrible death is probably on the menu, even if you are gonna come back, it's like, still you gotta face that, you gotta feel that shit, and he does it. And not only that, there are a lot of fights and conflicts where he just does these crazy stunts that just blows your fucking mind. Like I remember there was the one part where I think he had somebody like launch him all the way up in the sky, and then he landed on this flying whale, and then he leaped off of the whale so that the whale would follow him downward so other people could attack the whale. Like, that was fucking crazy. Like, moments like that, you have to give him credit. Like, for a half-assing, self-hating bitch boy, he can nut up when it's time to. He can nut up when it comes down to it. So he does have redeemable qualities. And you can also tell that he cares a lot about the people around him because of how far he's willing to go to change the fate of other people that he befriends, so that they won't meet like a gruesome, hideous end. So this whole situation for him is kind of therapeutic in a way, because like I said earlier, it really forced him to address his shortcomings and his flaws, but also gave him the opportunity to express his strengths and his good qualities as well, because I'm sure he probably wasn't very social when he was in the normal world. But now he had to be social. He had to kind of reach out and find allies and gather information and try to understand the world and the people around him more. Now he had to get involved in dangerous conflicts if he really wanted to save Amelia and other people. So I don't really mind him being a flawed character. I think that makes it more interesting a lot of the times when there is something about yourself that you have to overcome. But I still find it hard to like Natsuki. And I'm gonna talk about that later. But I'm just boom because man, I'm going. But yeah. Okay, next I'm gonna talk about Emilia. Now, Emilia is the half-elf magic user that Subaru initially meets when he enters this new world, and he's saved by her and decides to help her find her amulet. She ends up being the primary love interest in this anime, and she's also one of the 5 candidates to become the next ruler of the land. That's kind of really that's kind of the main issue that's going on in the world at the time. There's this selection process going on where the leaders of the country are trying to decide who's going to become the next ruler of the land. And the candidates are these 5 young girls who kind of govern these different parts of the country or provinces or whatever. And they each have different attributes and people backing them, their own knights and what have you. And they're kind of in competition with one another to be chosen as the next ruler. And Emilia happens to be one of them. Now, other than using like ice magic or whatever, she also has a familiar named Puck. Now, if you don't know what a familiar is, that's like Dungeons and Dragons speak for basically like an animal or magical companion type of creature. Like if I could just summon fucking Friender with the snap of a finger and he could just bite motherfuckers. Yeah, I just realized I got a familiar in a way. In a way, I have a familiar. That's fucking awesome. Oh man, but oh yeah, but now Emilia is obviously a kind and talented young girl. Anyone would fall in love with her, obviously. But she is also somewhat naive because she's always been very isolated and isn't very close to many people. In fact, up until Natsuki arrives, it seems as if Puck is really her best friend. And a lot of this a lot of this is because she's an half elf and resembles some fabled witch who all the people fear. So even though Emilia is very beautiful and really, she's strong and talented in her own right, the people that she wishes to govern don't really like her because they feel like she has the potential to be a threat to their well-being because of her connection to this witch or whatever. Now I don't know much about this whole witch shit because they don't really talk about her. They talk about her throughout the anime, but you don't really learn a lot about her. So I'm assuming that there's more to it in later chapters, and there's supposed to be another season. So I don't know much about the witch, but the witch to me is kind of similar to what Voldemort is in Harry Potter. Just this sort of feared, mysterious being that you can't even speak his name, and if you have any connection to him, then you should be feared and isolated and all that shit. And that's kind of what she's had to deal with her whole life. Being a half elf and having a connection to the witch, it's just isolated her. So that ends up being what she has to deal with throughout the anime. And but she seems to want to take the possibility of becoming the next ruler of the land seriously, but there's like this huge gap between her and the people she wishes to rule. And obviously it's because of the whole witch thing. And like I said, she ends up being Natsuki's primary love interest throughout the entirety of the anime. And it does appear that Emilia cares about Natsuki because, there's this whole point where she allows Natsuki to rest his head in her lap. And but her interest in him doesn't appear to be of the romantic kind, to be honest, even though he obviously wants to abuse her throat. Oh man, I had to say that, but because you know what it is, whenever you can paint it however you want. But when a guy is romantically attracted to a girl, it's also a sexual thing. I'm sure in the back of his mind, he's thinking about her sitting on his face, licking her ass, and deep throating her and all that shit. Let's be honest. But what pisses me off about this character, and this is what I don't like. This is something that kind of bothers me about anime in general. In fact, let me get a little sip of water. What I don't like about this character is that she's beautiful, graceful, and strong. But somehow she's been isolated, no friends. No one has tried to court her or marry her or anything like that. Like she's just this perfect angel just waiting to be scooped up by Natsuki. And I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's like, really, dude? Really? Because... And maybe I'm just thinking about our world too much. Maybe I'm looking at it and like I'm looking too deeply into it. Maybe I expect it to be too realistic. But let's be honest, bro. Like, how many bad bitches do you know that just has no friends and is lonely and isolated and everybody hates her? I mean, yeah, I understand the whole witch shit. I understand the half elf, but look at her. She's fucking gorgeous, dude. Somebody would have wanted to use her fucking throat over the course of all those years. Somebody would have wanted to ease up in that shit. She would, realistically speaking, she would not have been this isolated, diamond in the rough, lonely young girl wishing to socialize with the people. No, at the very least, it would have been plenty of guys trying to fuck her. And I just feel like that's one of the flaws of a lot of anime. It's just that they have these sort of girls that are just like packaged and just waiting for the hero or the main character, just right there for the taking. Like no real competition and all that. It's just like, come on, man, that shit is just phony as hell. But whatever, that's just me. All right, who's next? Ooh. Now, next is Rim. Now, she's also a love interest of Natsuki. It takes a while, though. Yeah, she's a little mean, but to say the least. But now, Rim is a half demon. She's a maid in the service of the Roswell Mansion. And she's the twin sister of Ram. So it's Rim and Ram. They're both half demon maids working at this mansion. Excuse me. And once Natsuki decides to become a servant himself, they have to sort of show him the ropes and teach him like his duties and tasks and whatnot. And so through the process of that, Natsuki gets to know these two twin sister half demon maids, cutie kawaiis. So yeah, so but she's also, like I said, she's a love interest. She's like the second fiddle of the love interest game there. It's kind of a love triangle going on. But don't let her looks deceive you. I mean, because like I said, she's a half fucking demon. So obviously she got some hands on her. She was like this big spike ball chain thing to just smash motherfuckers. So yeah, she'll kill you. But just a little history. Rim was always the weaker of the two sisters. They did like a little flashback where they kind of show what kind of went on in their past. And when they were born, it was obvious that Ram was somewhat of a like magic demon prodigy with powers that were just out of this world, never before seen. And Rim, although a demon as well, she just really couldn't compare to her sister at all. And you could even say she was somewhat jealous of the attention that her sister received for being such a prodigy. Even though she tried to make herself useful, it was just really never enough. And one night their village got attacked, and Ram ended up losing her horn while protecting Rim, which is the source of her powers. And in that moment, for a split second, Rim was happy that Ram lost her horn, because in her mind, she thought, finally, my sister won't outshine me in every conceivable way. But she felt bad about that. She felt bad that she had that feeling. She felt horrible. Like she even thought for a second that her sister losing her powers was a good thing. And so ever since then, she's sort of been punishing herself, trying to make up for what Ram lost by being really just trying to be exceptional in every way that she possibly can, whether that's fighting as well as just being a fucking maid. Now Rim and Ram, they both have somewhat stoic personalities, if not even a little cruel. They're kind of mean. Especially in the way that they pick on Natsuki. They really rip him apart for his shortcomings, and that's pretty much everybody. I mean, it's like everybody just, they look down on this guy, but they really get nasty with him. But underneath their calm, distant demeanor, if nothing else, you can tell that they love each other immensely. And Rem ends up warming up to Natsuki a lot over the course of the show. And one thing I noticed about Rem is that she's a very popular character, obviously, because she's one of the most important characters. But it out of this whole like love triangle thing, it seems like a lot of people feel like she should be the one that ends up with Natsuki. And you know, I don't really care either way, but I can kind of see why people say that. But kind of like Natsuki, I have like a love-hate relationship with her. Like I like her after a certain point, like she's just as far as like her loyalty, but at the same time, when she, well, this kind of a spoilers or whatever, but it's just like, it doesn't really matter, honestly. But when she killed Natsuki, she ended up killing Natsuki one time. And I can't help but look at her as a fucking murderer. Like, you killed this boy for next to no reason. I still haven't been able to forgive her. I still just see her as like this fucking crazed murderer. Even though she's done a complete 180 since, I still just see her the same way. So that's why I don't really care if she wins the fucking love battle or not. I'm still like, fuck this bitch. And then there's Ram, her sister, the half-demon maid who is also in the service of the Roswell Mansion. And they're really similar, except that now that Ram has lost her horn, it's like the roles have been reversed for them. It's like now she's the useless sister and Rem is the dependable, efficient one, getting everything done and actually has like a respectable amount of power left. And she does try her best, but it's obvious that without that horn, because she relied on that her pretty much her whole life. So it seems like it's been tough for her to adjust to being not only more normal on the level of other people, but even weaker than her sister that was once totally dependent on her. But it doesn't seem like she's taking it like too hard in terms of like, oh, I fucking resent you, I hate you, Rem. It's just that I'm sure it just sucks, you know. I'm sure she doesn't like having to be having to depend on the sister that once depended on her. But as a character, she's much less important than Rem overall, but still, all right. And then there's a Beatrice. Beatrice is another resident of the Roswell Mansion. She's like this cute lolly mage who resides in the library. Apparently she's somewhat powerful, and she's kind of a fucking smart ass to be to be honest. Like she can be kind of cruel towards Natsuki, but she does have some endearing qualities. Just like a lot of characters, it just takes a while for Natsuki to kind of bring it out of her. Like there's this one scene where she makes a contract with Natsuki to protect him because he was fearing for his life, and through the end, she honored that contract and was willing to protect him, even in the face of immense danger. So even though she's kind of a fucking brat, cheeky fucking cunt, she is, at the very least, she can honor her word and her contract. And she's very knowledgeable about magic and kind of teaches Natsuki a couple things or whatever. So but not much to say about her. She kind of is what she is. And also there's Roswell. He's apparently like he's one of the most powerful mages in the land, and you get to see him flex his power once or twice. And so yeah, obviously like he'll fuck shit up if you want to. But apparently he's the sponsor for Amelia. He's sort of her not her knight, but I guess just someone who's backing Amelia's bid for the throne. And having those type of connections is very important in this world. You need allies, you need connections, you need protection because shit will pop off and people will die. But throughout the anime, you don't really get the chance to learn a lot about him, other than like he's kind of eccentric, maybe a little fruity, I don't know, but he's a very like mysterious character. He's just, the anime, at least up until this point, doesn't really feed you a lot of information about him, except that he's wealthy, somewhat eccentric, powerful, and has a good reputation in the land. But that's about all about him. Okay, next is Crush Kartsen. I'm not gonna pronounce that right. I'm gonna just tell you right now. Oh man, it's a shame. I just got done watching it too. But Crush, I'm gonna call her Crush. I'm gonna just call her Crush for now. No, Kartsen. I'll go with Karsten. Let's go with Karsten. God damn these names. But yeah. Now, Karsten is another young woman who's one of the 5 candidates that will possibly become the next ruler of the land. Now, she's definitely an elite swords woman. She's very powerful. I believe that in combat, one of her special abilities is that she can swing her sword and the cut of the blade can actually travel several yards. So she can kill you from like yards and yards away. That's kind of her special fighting ability. But also she has this ability where she always knows if somebody is telling the truth or not, which is, very valuable given the state of the world that they're in, where information is very valuable, and getting allies and knowing what's true and what's not. Now she's kind of a masculine she's kind of a masculine chick. She has like that Mitsuru thing going on, Mitsuru from Persona 3, where she's beautiful and elegant, but also powerful and strict, like a real no nonsense type of girl. Definitely my type. I always like the strong girls more than anything else, because just more practical, and you guys to use them for combat and shit. I just think that's hot when a fucking girl can fucking protect you and shit. I love that. But yeah, I feel like Karsten is the perfect example of what the prevailing attitude in the land is, which is really the understanding that nothing is free in this world. Like, there's this part where Natsuki is basically like begging for her help, and she's like, well, what do you have to give me? What do you got? This is a bargain. This is a negotiation, and you're not really negotiating. You're just begging. And Natsuki doesn't really get it, because he's thinking, you should just help people for the sake of helping them. But she refuses to help him. So this whole scene ends up being like an important wake-up call for Natsuki, because he comes from the fucking modern era where we're all just fucking pussy ass civilians who kind of have to stick together and help each other whenever we can. But now he's dealing with the top people of that world who have to be careful about every little decision that they make. And he was basically asking her to help one of her rivals. So of course she wanted something in return. Like, why should I help somebody that's competing with me for the throne? That just doesn't make any sense. You have to make this deal of like you have to offer something in return. And that's just a very important moment for Natsuki that kind of forces him to get out of his begging fucking ways and actually, bring something to the table when it comes to negotiating, and also learning the importance of gathering powerful allies, and that he can't just do everything on his own. Having the return by death ability is useful, but it definitely gets to a point where that's just not enough. Like he really just has to not only gather information that would be of value to other people, but to organize these people so that he can accomplish his goal of protecting Amelia. And I feel like Carson is at sort of the whole center of that part of the anime. Now, even though she seems very cold and pragmatic when you first meet her, she does display an almost absurd level of loyalty to him once he gains her trust. So again, this is another character that's kind of has a hard shell, but once Natsuki is able to penetrate it, then there's a powerful friendship develops as a result. So again, someone that's honestly a good person, but it's a harsh, difficult world that they live in, so they can't be trusting of everyone. They can't just try to help everyone that's in need. Like self-preservation and things like that are very important in this world. If you haven't understood that thus far, and again, she's the perfect example of that. Now, each one of the 5 candidates that are trying to become the ruler of the land, they each have a special knight at their service. And the knight of Karsten is Felix Argyle. And he is a knight, of course. And his whole thing is like, he's a healer. He's a healer / trap cat. The legendary trap cat that I've been seeing, and I probably masturbated to a couple times. I finally got to see him. And to be honest, to me, Felix is honestly somewhat of a bland character. If I had to be honest, I was a little disappointed. I thought he'd be a little bit more cooler. But it's kind of like with Felix, other than the whole trap thing, he really is just another person who scolds Natsuki for his incompetence. But as far as what he can do in combat, he is actually very useful, because even though he's not much of a fighter, he's considered to be one of the best healers in the land, which really comes in handy once shit hits the fucking fan. And he and Carson really complement each other, because you would think that Felix would be the one protecting her, like in a physical strongman way, but it's kind of the opposite. It's like she's the muscle and he's the healer, so they sort of balance each other out. So that's kind of cool. And he's also somewhat insightful. Like, he offers Natsuki a bit of advice every now and then, when he's not flirting with him and trying to make him very uncomfortable. But I can always appreciate a trap character in an anime, like fucking Haku or whatever. There's always, I can always appreciate that. But honestly, I just felt like Felix, to me, just seems like, man, whoever made this, they just wanted to throw a trap in there. Like, man, I'm just throw a fucking trap in there for no reason. Like, it's just, but at least he does serve a purpose in that, he's he's a fucking healer. And it does come into use later on in the anime. So, yeah. And last but not least, Peltagis Romani Conti. I'm not good at pronouncing a lot of these names. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna go with Peltagis, because that's what I heard a lot. Peltagis. But yeah, Peltagis is the main villain of ReZero, at least of, for this arc or whatever. He's the witch cult leader. And he has like this power where he can generate like these invisible hands to strangle people and rip things apart and break shit down. Just very destructive power. And also he seems to be able to possess other people when his body gets destroyed. Excuse me. Now, this guy is pure chaotic evil. I mean, he kind of reminds me of the Joker a tad bit, just a little bit, because he's very eccentric, but terrifying at the same time. Like, you wouldn't know if he was gonna lick your toes or twist your fucking head off. Like, he's just that fucking unpredictable. And he has like all these weird tics where he'll repeat the same thing over and over again, and like he bites his fingernails to the point where his fingers start bleeding, and he's throwing his head all over the place. And I mean, just obviously insane. But then he'll have these moments where he'll just kind of relax and calm down, and it just for like a split second, it'll seem like he knows what he's doing or he knows what he's talking about. Like, just like, I guess it's kind of like what they say, even a broken clock is right twice a day. Just every now and then, he have a moment where it's like, where he kind of says something that's like kind of smart, kind of like, yeah, like. There's this point where he catches Natsuki, and Natsuki at this point is just totally distraught. I mean, he just totally mind fucked, to the point where he doesn't even really acknowledge that Peltagis has captured him, nor does he really care. He's just so fucked up in the head. And it's almost like Peltagis was able to see through just the superficialness or the superficiality of Natsuki's state. He was like, you're not really crazy. You haven't really lost your mind. Let me show you that you haven't really lost your mind. And then like he kills one of his friends right in front of him, and then sort of snaps Natsuki out of it. So he does seem to be like a little bit wiser than he lets on, but it's like that little speck of wisdom is just drowning in fucking madness and insanity. But just a very, man, just kind of a confusing, crazy ass character, man, overall. And he is the leader of a cult that worships the jealous witch, or whatever they fucking call her. And his whole goal is to destroy Amelia, and the province that she resides over. And the way they set it up, it seems like they're doing the thing, the whole like 7 deadly sins thing that Full Metal Alchemist did. Like they had sloth and lust and pride and envy, and Peltagis, he represents sloth, but you don't really see any of the other like pride or envy or anything like that. But it seems like they're sort of hinting that there will be more villains, more bad guys who represent these 7 deadly sins. So I'm assuming that as the story progresses, you probably see like, oh, now he has to fight lust, and now he has to fight envy. And to be honest, that whole thing is just fucking overplayed, man. The whole 7 deadly sins thing. Be more original, please. God damn it. But he's a serviceable villain for this show. I mean, definitely not bad. I mean, he definitely put the fear in Natsuki, and was a respectable bad guy. I'll give him that. I don't hate him. He was all right. So those were what I believe were the most important characters of this anime. Next, I'm going to talk about the good and the bad. This is where it gets fun. I will return. Okay, so let's talk about what I like about this. Now, the good. The return by death aspect of the show really did make things very interesting. Now, of course, this isn't an original idea. I mean, you can think back to movies like Groundhog Day or Edge of Tomorrow, that Tom Cruise movie, or even something like Final Destination, where people confront death but get an opportunity to overcome it. So it's not a new idea by any means, but at the same time, it's cool seeing it done with the anime aesthetic. It's cool to see it like this age-old idea applied to, you know, the anime cliches and the tropes. Like, now you get to see it with anime lollies and magic and love polygons and all that shit. You know, so and I'm sure there probably was another anime with some semblance of this type of idea. But I think at this point, ReZero is kind of like seen as the main anime that kind of went with this whole idea. And I feel like, to me, that's the strongest point of this whole anime. And really what kept me interested, because even up until his first death, it was just always interesting to try to find out, like, okay, how is he gonna overcome this? And each time it always got progressively worse and worse and worse, and just seemingly more impossible for him to find a way to get out of it. But he always does, of course, because really initially it just always seems so bleak. Like man, like just for example, when the whole second scenario where he goes to the Roswell mansion and everything seems fine, then he just wakes up dead. He just wakes up and somebody killed him. It's like, dude, you're just thinking, like, who the fuck killed him? Was it Roswell? Was it one of the maids? Was it the little lolly maids in the library? Was it Emil? You just don't know. And things like that just pull you into the story and just want to know, like, okay, what's going on? What's his motivation? Like, who killed him? What happened? How is he going to figure this out? How is he going to overcome this? That's really the strongest point of this anime. And I feel like they do that very well. And of course, just because he dies the first time and comes back doesn't mean that he gets it right immediately. It's usually a process of like trial and error. So you might think that, okay, this is a good idea, but it just ends up not working anyway. And then he dies and he tries again, then he dies, and then, oh, this is what it took. This is what made things work out for the better. And so I feel like the way that they utilize the whole return by death aspect, I have to admit they did a good job with it. At least a good enough job to keep me interested, because that's really was for me, that was the main thing that kept me interested in this anime. Everything else was kind of but you know. All right. Also, the action scenes are well animated and the battles actually have a semblance of depth. And I wasn't too surprised, because you can tell like this is the type of anime where they're not gonna they're gonna spill the fucking budget all over this anime. Like you can tell it's a fucking big budget anime, and they didn't cut any corners when it came to the battles and the fights and shit. Like it was actually very well animated, and the fights were impressive. But not only that, I like that the fights just weren't these straightforward battles of, okay, my power level is higher than yours, so I win. There was actually some complexity and strategy and tactics that were used in the fights, especially for someone like Natsuki, who isn't very powerful himself, so he has to approach these situations with strategy. Even if he's not the one to deal the final blow, he'll find a person and sort of nudge them in the right direction to be able to do that. Just for example, there's a fight where Natsuki, he's trying to battle Peltages, who has, of course, the invisible hands or whatever. And Natsuki, he's the only one that can actually see these hands. So this gives Peltages a big advantage in battle, because he has these strong, invisible, magical hands that can extend very far and just grab and crush people instantly. So now Natsuki, even though he can see these hands, he's not nearly strong enough to actually fight Peltages. So he allies himself with a knight who is powerful, but this knight cannot see the hands. So how is he going to fight Peltages? Well, this knight is also a magic user, and he has a spell that allows him to experience the senses of other people. So he uses that spell on Natsuki so that he can see basically what Natsuki sees. So he's able to see the hands with Natsuki's eyes, even though he wouldn't be able to see them otherwise. And this gives him the ability to fight Peltages on equal terms. And so again, that's the type of shit that I like about this anime, is that it's not just, okay, I got this big sword and I'm strong, I'm gonna kill you. Again, they have to use strategy and tactics. And just another example, early on in the anime, when Natsuki is trying to defeat that woman in black who had killed him and Amelia the first time, he ends up finding this knight who kind of comes to their rescue, and so he ends up fighting this crazy ass blade wielding woman. Now, even though he's powerful, he can't fight at full strength because Amelia is off in the corner healing someone. And since she's healing someone, she's drawing up magical energy from the surrounding area, which means that the knight can't use that energy to unleash his full power. So again, that's just another aspect of the complexity of that world, and how it's a lot of different things that you have to consider when you're fighting, because one little detail can mean the difference between life and death, victory or defeat. It's not just these straightforward battles of, oh, my power level is 9,000, but yours is 9,005, so you win. There's a lot of different shit going on, and that's what I definitely appreciate about this anime. Okay. Also, the core message is a simple but good one. Now, obviously, Natsuki is a flawed character, but like every anime character, he goes through that character development, that one pivotal moment that just sends him on the right course of life. And even though I don't think it was executed very well, excuse me, I think the overall message is one that I think would be good for anyone, which is really just giving your chance the opportunity to start from zero, giving your chance, just forgiving yourself of your past mistakes and deciding, you know what, from this day forward, I'm going to do everything I can to be better. I'm not going to let anything get me down. I'm going to be diligent and persistent at being the best that I possibly can be, and I'm never ever going to back down. It's very simple, but even before I watched the show, that's really been like my mindset this year. Just taking things one day at a time. Even if I fucked up yesterday, nowadays when I wake up, the first thing I try to do is to get myself in the mindset of just, you know what? I'm gonna start the day off going as hard as I can. I'm gonna start off. I'm gonna meditate. I'm gonna clean up. I'm gonna go for a run. I'm gonna go to the library. I'm gonna read. I'm gonna work on the beat. Like just, and if I fuck up along the way, then fuck it. You know what? I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and I'm gonna do the same thing. So just really just taking things one day at a time. You know, you're gonna make mistakes along the way, but you know, as long as you have breath, as long as you have life, as long as you have time, do you have the opportunity to right those wrongs and whatnot. And that's kind of the gist of what the message is in this. And yeah, it's definitely a good message. Simple, but good. And I think anyone could benefit from it. Now, the bad. Okay, hold on. Let me get a sip of water. Okay. Now, the first thing I don't like about this is that I strongly dislike Subaru. Now, let me explain exactly why. For one, he is a simp. Because no matter how you look at it, the primary motivation behind his actions is trying to fuck Amelia. He ends up in this new world. He meets Amelia and is love at first sight. And it's just like, okay, I'm dedicated to you. I'm dedicating my life to you. I'm willing to die time and time again for you, Amelia. I'll cross any mountain. I'll overcome any dragon, any pain, any suffering. I would die 100 million times to save you, Amelia. Yeah. Now, that's not bad in of itself. So this is more of a personal thing, because you guys know me, like I'm not big on the romance lovey-dovey type shit. Like I'm so jaded when it comes to romance and relationships that I really can't appreciate like these sort of grand acts of affection that I see in movies and anime sometimes. So I'm not gonna say like this, like I wouldn't be mad at someone for not having a problem with his primary motivation being wanting to have a relationship with Amelia. It's just that someone like me, I can't get behind it. I think that's corny, because then it's like, it just seems like your whole reason for being is this woman, which is just blatantly simp shit. I mean, let's be honest, like he's a simp. There's that simp shit. But again, it's kind of a more personal thing, because it's not that I don't like romance and anime. It's just that I want it to be done well and in a unique way. Like I hated the relationship drama between Domon and Rain in G Gundam. I love the anime, but the whole oh god, the drama between those two, Rain, Domon, oh, it was sickening. I hated that shit. It reminded me so much of dysfunctional relationships that I see around me. So it's hard for me to resonate with characters whose sole motivation is romance or some love or some chick or whatever. I can't relate to that at all. And again, it's all right to fall in love and all that shit, but it just the extreme that he takes it to. Like there's a moment where somebody says like someone compares Natsuki to being like Amelia's dog, and he's like, yeah, I'm her dog. If that's what it takes, I'll be her pet or whatever. And even the fucking guy beside him was like, nah, bruh, like that's not cool. Like that's kind of low even for you. Like, so it's funny how even a character within the story sort of recognized that his level of affection and devotion to Amelia is almost absurd. But that's just one of the things that I don't like about him. But again, it's more of a personal thing. If you're the romantic type, then you probably won't have a problem with that. Also, he has the most generic MC moral compass that you could possibly imagine. Now, let me explain. When he was killed by Rim, now any normal person would have said, you know what, fuck that bitch, she killed my ass. Like I don't want nothing. You what? Fuck that hoe. But he was like, no, I need to figure out why she is the way that she is. I like her so much. I thought we were friends. And that was the moment where Natsuki lost all credibility to me. It's it's a lot of things I can't forgive, but if you fucking kill me for any reason, it is just there is no, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to know you. I mean, you can do less to me. I'm talking about kill me. Nigga, steal $100 from me, I'll probably never talk to you again. So he got killed by this bitch and somehow felt like, you know what, I still want to just save her. I want to know more about her. It's like, come on, bro. That is just the most, it's a level of righteousness. Because I'm not saying what he did was bad necessarily, but it's too forgiving. It's too merciful to the point of not even being like relatable. You understand? You understand what I'm saying? It's just being that merciful and understanding. I think even most average people just could not relate to that. Just saying, you know what, well, yeah, you killed me, but you know what, I give you another chance. Like, come on, like that's just fucking crazy. But again, it's that generic MC moral compass that you see in a lot of like anime main characters, where they'll never take anything other than the high road. And again, not saying that's bad, but I think it prevents the character from being very relatable, because real people just aren't like that. Most people aren't like that. Like most people are somewhat unforgiving, unmerciful. Like we have some semblance of evil or darkness. I wouldn't even say evil. Like it's evil to not forgive someone that killed you, but just definitely aren't righteous enough to the point where they would just outright forgive someone who does something like that. And again, like once he did that, it's like I just felt like I was just never able to reconnect with him as a character. And also, I understand that Natsuki is a flawed character. It's like in a strange way, that's part of his appeal, because fuck ups like me, we can identify with him a lot, but we all have like this ideal that we try to live up to as well. Like even a fucking murdering thief can have some sort of a code. And throughout the show, you see Natsuki express and develop his own sort of code and honor system, but in the end, it just ends up being no different than every other somewhat holier than thou anime MC like Ippo or Deku. Like there's a part in Hajime no Ippo where Ippo got mad at one of his this young guy who was kind of training under him, and this guy ended up using his new boxing skills in a street fight, and it made Ippo so mad that really all he did was slap the fuck out this boy. But Ippo being so strong that he fucking flew. I mean that one slap did some damage. But Ippo felt so bad about it. Like he was talking about turning himself into the police. He shaved his head to redeem himself. It's like he took it so bad. Like just this one instance of just, you know what, fuck it. I gotta slap some sense to this boy. even that, like, he's such a morally righteous, good character that he couldn't even do that one thing without feeling bad about it. And again, I'm not saying like it's bad to be like totally righteous, a paragon of good. But again, that's not how most people are. And so I think it makes it hard for those characters to be completely relatable. And for you to on one hand say, you know what, I'm gonna take this character and have him like be sort of realistically this hickey neat, like what would a hickey really be like in this situation, to do that, but at the same time turn around and say, well, he's still going to have a sort of generic moral compass that's similar to most anime MCs. Again, I just feel like they just sort of dropped the ball there, because it makes it hard to really relate to them when they're just that fucking much of a goody two shoes, you know? Really, what I'm trying to say is, when you scrape away the loser paint that he was originally covered in, what's left is just another generic, predictable, self-insert anime MC with really no special or unique qualities whatsoever. Really, I mean, again, just take away all the hickey, I'm a hickey, self-hating, all that. Take that away, and what's left is just another generic anime MC. And I like seeing I like seeing characters that are a little edgy, that are a little different and have a different approach to things. But again, he's just really, without the whole loser aspect, he's just incredibly generic. And again, another reason why I don't like him. Now, last but not least, why I don't like this motherfucker. I got a whole section on why I don't like him. He turned down Rim. Let me get a sip for this one. This one's probably the worst one. Now, don't get me wrong. Do not get it twisted. I have no bias whatsoever into who Natsuki chooses to be with romantically. I don't care if he decided to dick down the fucking trap cat dude. What I hate about this scene is just how unrealistic it really is. When you just know the creator prides himself on how much depth he think Natsuki has, and how he reacts to dying in such an authentic way. It's like, you just know he's saying like, yeah, dying is scary and painful. Any of you would cry and grovel at the face of death just like Natsuki. That's reality. Ha 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 ha. But do you know what else is reality? 18-year-old boys don't turn down cute, literally 10 out of 10 kawaii half demon maids who are willing to die for them at a moment's notice. The reason why this bothers me is that on one hand, I admire how they portrayed Natsuki having to confront death and ultimate despair time and time again, and his character development and background is you know, that shit is relatable, it's real. But when it comes to romance, yet again, the creator drops the ball. Alright. You telling me a hickey loser who has been jacking off his whole life, ain't never had a whiff of the pussy, has no self-discipline or self-control, is just gonna turn down a top-tier QT like Rim on any day of the week? I mean, bruh, come on. Like, really, come on. Rim the type, like, she'll suck dick right then and there, bro. Like, let's be real. Like, he had a personal cock slave on a platter just right there. But nah, I love Amelia. Really? I mean, look, fuck putting your head in her lap. Like, she putting her head in your lap. And it's like, don't give me that shit. Like, well, he was in love with Amelia. No, dude. Come on. Like, do you know what it's like to have options? Like, do people really understand what it means to have options as a man, but of like multiple beautiful, cute girls? Most of us really don't. But let's be like, once you get that chance, you're taking it. Like, let's be real. 9 times out of 10, if they're just absolutely throwing the pussy at you like Rim was to him, you would take it. You would not be like, well, I have this other girl that I might be able to get with. Hell no. Like, I'm just so tired of these unrealistic portrayals of romance and teenage, just really what it is to be a young, horny, sex obsessed male. And anime just typically drops the ball. Now, I feel like there are a couple good examples of doing it the right way. Now, I feel like Gantz, I will forever appreciate the way Gantz handled romance. Now, let me just fucking explain for those who've never seen Gantz. Now, Gantz is kind of, I'm not gonna say it's similar to ReZero. They're very different, but at the same time, they have similarities. Like, the main character is kind of an outcast, nobody, almost loser type who gets, forced into this situation where now he has like powers and it kind of gets to his head and all that type of shit. But there's a part in Gantz where the time has come for the main character. He gets brought back to this room where there's this black ball, and anyone who goes to this room, it means that they died, and now they have to fight aliens with like these power suits and guns and shit, and they have the opportunity to win their lives back. That's basically the gist of Gantz, at least in the beginning. And there's always sort of a change as far as like who's in the room and who isn't, because if you die a second time, then you're probably not gonna come back, because it would take someone having to sort of bring you back with their points or whatever. But long story short, there's a part in Gantz where the main character, he gets transported back to the room with the black ball, and they're about to be sent to kill some aliens or whatever. But there's a new girl there, and this girl is bad. Like, she's like older, she's tall, she's got a fat ass, big titties. And she immediately takes a liking to the main character. So what does he do? He took that bitch to the back and beat it down, bruh. He beat that shit down. So I mean, straight up. And that was just one of the, like, I love that moment so much, because to me, that was real. Like, because let's be honest, when you're a horny teenager, if you more than likely, if you get the chance, the perfect opportunity to fuck somebody, a pretty girl, even a cute girl, you're probably gonna take it. You don't have the fucking self-discipline or willpower or the fucking restraint to say no. Like, it's gonna happen. Like, it's just, let's be honest here. A lot of us are only virgins because we never had the opportunity like that. And that's what I appreciate about Gantz so much, was that once he got the chance to fuck a bad bitch, he took it. I mean, I love that, because I'm not saying every guy in the world is that way, but I've seen so many animes where it's like the guys just don't really seem that interested in being sexually active. I mean, even I'm not now, but dude, like, just a few years ago, god damn what I would have done if given the opportunity. And also, Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans is sort of a different take on romance, where the main characters, they're these rebels who could really just die any day. They don't know whether they're gonna live to see the next day, because they're always caught up in these violent, dangerous conflicts. And so the attitude that they have towards sex is kind of like, it's more about like self-preservation. It's like there's a point where the main character is like, well, do you want to have sex? Do you want to make a baby? Like, it just really, it's so simple and straightforward. because in his mind it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it or not, so why don't we make a baby? And that's exactly what they did. Like I might die any day now, so why don't we fucking we make a baby? And that's just how it happened. And I just appreciate those type of different takes on romance where it seems more realistic instead of just the typical, oh, I'm in love with this one girl, even though I have like 10 other bad bitches just throwing me pussy. I want this one that's being difficult, this one that's a challenge. It just, come on, bruh. And again, just based off of really like what he comes from, just a loser, hickey, neat, whatever. Come on, bruh. Like, let's be honest. Like, 9 out of 10 hickeys would have fucked Rim. And that's why I don't like this guy. Just, no. Okay. I had a whole section just to rip this guy apart. I fucking hate Subaru. Alright. But last but not least, what I don't like about this anime is that a lot of the scenes that were meant to be emotional and touching just missed the mark for me. Now, the message is on point, but I feel like it's wasted on an anime that really failed to make me care about the characters. Now, again, I don't like Subaru. So that's strike one. Like, I don't even like the main character. So I'm supposed to care about his problems, his character development and all. Like, no, I don't like him. So that's a big flaw right there, or that's a big downside right off the bat. If you don't like the main character, then it's like, but other than that, like, this show is very heavy on the fucking feels. There are a lot of overly dramatic moments of people spilling their guts out about why they hate themselves or the world. A lot of crying, a lot of moments that were meant to be emotionally touching, but just ended up being somewhat awkward and cringy. Like the scene where Natsuki is telling Rim about how much he hates himself. Like, on one hand, even I can relate to that state of mind. But at the same time, I was like, you whiny bitch, just shut up and get on with it. Like, and I couldn't appreciate the moment because I just don't like Natsuki as a character. So for me, those emotional scenes just ended up being more annoying and in the way. And I really dreaded those moments because you can just smell it when it's coming. You just know when it's about to get just too heavy on the feels. And it kind of reminds me of Clannad. I watched the first season of Clannad, and that show got one of the lowest scores I've ever given an anime. I gave that a 4 out of 10. And looking back, I understand exactly why. It's because it's an anime it's a very feel heavy anime, a lot of drama and emotional scenes, but I just really couldn't relate to the characters and a lot of the situations, and I just didn't like or care about the characters. And so it ended up just being more annoying than like, yeah, man, I know, I feel you, bro. It's really just none of that. And I really just didn't care about the fate of a single character in this show. I mean, I found the world and its magic and the politics, all that shit was kind of intriguing, but really I didn't have any qualms about who overcame what or which faction would come out on top at the end. It's like, how the fuck am I supposed to know as a viewer if this whole thing isn't just like a simulation or something? Like, why should I care about a bunch of NPCs? Just for example, in Inuyasha, there was a direct link between the feudal demon era of Japan and the modern era. So you know that even though Kagome was in a separate world, the stakes were real. But in ReZero, you should still like they haven't fully explained why Natsuki was pulled into this world. Like, really, what the fuck is this world? Is it like a computer game simulation? with just super realistic like sensing nose or some shit, or like what is it? I don't know if I'm dealing with a bunch of NPCs or like real people from some ancient past or arsenic dimension or whatever. So, and then on top of that, the return by death aspect, in a way, it took away from the severity of character death. Because you always knew that no matter how bad it got, Natsuki could just die and do things a different way, sort of correct things. So that lessened the impact of the bad situations and characters dying or having an unfortunate fate. Because you always knew that whatever happens, Natsuki can always just die and at least try his best to fix it. But I think really that was the biggest problem for me with this show, is that they did the whole return by death thing right. They made, like, that was the one thing that made things interesting, and the world itself was kind of interesting and shit like that. But I think for me, the weakest part of it is the characters. I really just don't like any of, like, I'm not saying like all the characters are bad, but none of them stand out to me as like, oh, I like this guy or whatever. I really don't give a fuck about any of them. I think that was really the main problem with it, is that had it been more of an action focused anime, I might have liked it more. But because then those overly dramatic scenes wouldn't have gotten in the way and wouldn't have annoyed me so much. Because I'm learning, I'm watching these characters that I don't care about go through all this fucking drama and crying and bonding, and I don't care about you. I don't care what happens to you. Like, just die or live or whatever. I don't care. And I feel like that made it hard for me to just, it was just difficult for me to endure some of those scenes. I couldn't wait for a lot of those more emotional scenes to just end. And so in the end, I gotta say, like, that's why I feel like I had kind of a love-hate experience with this anime, where it definitely had redeemable qualities, but I think just not being able to really enjoy the characters and just like the characters or care about the characters, it prevented me from enjoying it as much as someone else might have. So, yeah. Next, I'm gonna just talk about the score. So, excuse me for a second. Whew. Okay, so now what will I score Re:Zero? This might be a little controversial, but let's start from the beginning. Now, the story, I'll give it a 2.5. Now, I guess the story could have got a higher score if I cared about the characters. Again, that was a major flaw of it for me. Just, I really didn't care about what the outcome was. I just wanted to know what it was. But that's really what hurt the score on the story end of it. Because on one hand, I was always wanting to know what was going to happen next, but it wasn't because like I really cared, really cared about really what was going to happen. I just wanted to know, all right, how is he going to get out of this? But really, I didn't care about like who lived or who died or anything like that. Really, for me, this show kind of survived on the strength of just the whole return by death gimmick. And that's why I had to kind of give the story kind of a mediocre score, because it really relies on gimmicks rather than just straight up good storytelling. Because really, without the return by death aspect, would this really be as interesting? I think that's really the strength of it. Because a lot of the other aspects of it are just kind of generic and typical. Now, the action, I give it a 3. out of 5 because those, like I said before, those action scenes were very well animated. This show is very dark, actually. This shit is violent as hell. I mean, it's really some of the deaths that Natsuki has to suffer are very gruesome. I mean, God, dude, he gets fucking gutted, head chopped off, fell off, well, jumped off a cliff. I think it was one where he was like poisoned to death and vomiting all over the place. I mean, and not only him, but just a lot of the other characters. Just, it's a very violent anime, and of course, me, the edgelord that I am, I enjoy the blood and the violence and the chaos, and even better when it's well animated. And that's really one of the that's really one of the strong points of this anime. It's just that the action, like those, there are really a lot of good, notable, memorable action scenes in this, to say the least. Animation and art style, I give it a 3 out of 5. The art style is a little generic. The character designs not really okay, but I think the animation is really the whole strength of this aspect of the anime. If nothing else, the pivotal action scenes, they're very well animated. It's honestly impressive, and good eye candy. The music and sound effects, mediocre score, 2.5. The music is okay, but it's not like, I was just like, oh man, this is my shit right here. I gotta go download this. But I probably will go back and actually listen to the OST by itself. I think that's what I'm gonna start doing when I actually score the music part of anime. I need to really listen to it outside of the context of the anime, because it can be kind of distracting to really try to listen to the music and watch the anime at the same time, because then you can't really enjoy the nuances of the tracks. So that's what I'm gonna start doing. But just from what I heard within the anime, it wasn't like, oh man, I gotta go download this shit. So it's got just okay music that fit what's going on. Comedy, I give it a 2 out of 5. Definitely not a bad thing, because it's not. This anime has comedy is a significant part of this anime, but especially in the beginning. But as it goes along, it just gets darker and more serious in tone. But really early on, that's when the comedy is at its strongest, and it's pretty good. It's pretty, like, I wouldn't say it's like laugh out loud funny, but there are like little funny hijinks and things like that. Just really just the way that a lot of the characters sort of pick Natsuki apart and sort of bully him and things like that. Like just little funny moments like that, little gag moments and whatnot. You got like comedy relief characters like Puck or whatever, and little Lolly Mage. So, but again, it kind of gets more serious as the anime goes along. So, but again, it's not really a pure comedy anime, so that's not really a huge knock against it. I appreciate what amount of comedy is in this anime. And last but not least, Ichi. We have to score the Ichi. I give it a 1 out of 5. Again, not a bad thing. It's not a very sexual anime. Of course, there are, you got Rim and her little B cups, and little, some suggestive themes here and there. But again, it's not a very overtly sexual anime, like big titty lollies walking around half dressed and shit like that, panty shots, nothing of that nature. But you definitely you got a little cleavage here and there. That's why I had to give it the 1. Now overall, I give ReZero a 6.5 out of 10. Now I know probably a lot of people would disagree with me on that, and honestly, I wouldn't even be bothered by that, because I think with this anime in particular, I think what you think of it would come down a lot to personal taste. And I think me not really just not really being heavy into anime where romance is the driving force of the main character's actions and his, you know, and his motivations. I'm really just not into that sort of thing. Like just these stories of like these epics of grand romance and love and all. Like that's really just not my thing. I just gotta be honest. And I think that if that is your thing, then you would appreciate ReZero and even its characters a lot more. Like if you're the romantic type, if your greatest goal and aspiration is to find the love of your life and sacrifice body and soul for them and get married and have your kids, and you might appreciate this a lot more. But I think because that type of motivation doesn't resonate with me, it kind of prevented me from really enjoying or liking Subaru, the main character, which is a big knock against a fucking anime when you don't even like the main character. And not only that, just not really vibing with a lot of the characters anyway, just not really caring about whether who lived or died. But I can definitely see someone seeing this and saying, you know, like giving it like an 8 or even an 8.5 as opposed to my 6.5. But I think the difference is going to depend on what your personal preferences are as far as like what resonates with you when you watch anime or play video games, whatever, like what type of tone and characters you like. And I just think that for me, like this whole love polygon, love at first sight, and all the forced drama and all that shit, that's just not my thing, to be honest. But if it is your thing, then you would definitely enjoy this more. So don't let my 6.5 discourage you from watching it if you haven't, because I think it's more of a thing of personal taste. But not only that, I think that I'm deep into my anime career. So I think some of what bothered me about this anime was just a lot of things that I found to be just generic and common within the anime world. I'm always looking for freshness and things that sort of are outside of the norm as far as like characters and their motivations and their actions and whatnot. And I feel like Natsuki is just a little bit too generic for me. And I think, again, if you're someone who hasn't watched a lot of anime, then this type of character and world might be a lot more fresh to you, which might allow you to enjoy it a lot more than I have. So I'm just gonna chop up my mediocre score for this anime as being a combination of just not being really into romance type of shows, and also just being jaded on anime in general. Like I'm gonna be harsh when I see a lot of just fucking generic shit like I've seen in this. But yeah, I give it a 6.5. I enjoyed certain things about it, but at the same time, it was kind of painful for me to get through certain scenes because, again, just dreading the fucking overly dramatic, emotional, touching BS and just disliking Subaru. So that was my review of ReZero. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you haven't seen it, maybe I encourage you to watch it, or maybe I discourage you from watching it. Either way, hope you guys had a great time. And yeah, hope whatever. What's next? Oh yeah, for those who have stuck with me this far, spoiler alert, my next anime review is going to be Trigun. But don't tell anyone. It's a secret. Shh. See you guys later.